Maybe you'd like to kitbash a turntable for your model railroad. That's what I'm doing. Let's go trackside and I will show you. I'm Roy Smith. You're watching episode number 18 in my Evanston renovation series. In this episode, I'm going to show you how I'm kitbashing a turntable for the roundhouse at Evanston on my layout. I want to show you how I'm doing it because, who knows, you may want to kitbash a turntable for your layout someday. Besides, I believe that sharing the hobby is the best part of model railroading. In fact, that's what we do on this channel. We share the hobby. So if you're into model railroading, be sure to subscribe if you haven't done it yet, and be sure to hit the notification bell so that you don't miss any upcoming episodes. I want to create a turntable for my layout that resembles the prototype at Evanston, Wyoming. I want it to look something like this. The turntable has been restored and is fully functional. During public events such as model train shows, you can ride on it. Now that I'm not trying to replicate the prototype because replicate means to make an exact copy of something. For me, that would be impossible given my limited space and my limited talent. But I do want to create something that resembles the prototype. The roundhouse at Evanston is the only remaining complete roundhouse on the Union Pacific line from Omaha to Sacramento. That is, on America's first transcontinental railroad that was built back in the 1860s. And as I said, the turntable at the roundhouse has been restored and is fully functional. But remember, the railroad complex hasn't been used in many years. The Union Pacific turned the complex over to the city in 1972, and the city is renovating it for public events and city office space, just as I am renovating it on my layout. Now, unlike the prototype, the turntable on my layout will be non-functional because it is merely part of a background scene. The turntable on the prototype does not serve real trains, and it won't be serving any trains on my layout either. Let's go over to my workbench. I want to show you some of the things I'm using to create the turntable. First, this Atlas N-Scale Truss Bridge Kit. I've already started to assemble the turntable, so what you see here are some leftover cut-up pieces of the Atlas kit. The turntable pit. I'm using a plastic lid from a jar for the pit. I cut down the rim so that the pit isn't too deep, and I've already given it a base coat of buff-colored paint to match the color of the prototype. I hope the pit will resemble the prototype when I'm done. Of course, the pit on the prototype is constructed of reinforced concrete. Unlike the turntable bridge itself, the pit has not been renovated and has vegetation growing in it. I'm going to use one of the N-scale relay boxes in this pack to make a turntable operator's booth. Here you see the operator's booth on the prototype. The turntable has an electric motor and is controlled from here. Protective fencing along the sides of the turntable bridge. This fencing doesn't match the prototype exactly, but it's what I have, so it's what I will use. Here you see the protective fencing on the prototype. Remember, you can ride on the prototype during public events. The fencing is here to keep you from falling into the turntable pit. And here's the last thing I want to show you before we go over to the layout. A Fairmont speeder. I will have to assemble it and then paint it to match the prototype. Here you can see the speeder on the prototype. I think you can go for rides on it during public events. Okay, let's go over to the layout. Here's the railroad complex. You can see where the turntable will go. You may be wondering why I put cork sheeting under the structures. Well, mainly to raise the foundations of the structures up to match the top of the rails. As you know, I use Cato Unitrack on my layout, and Cato Unitrack sits high on its plastic roadbed. I put down cork sheets like this in yards and sidings because it's an easy and effective way to create the illusion that tracks in the yards and sidings are at a lower level than the mainline tracks. Something like this on the prototype at Evanston. I will be talking more about creating this illusion in a future episode when I ballast the track in the yard. I have been putting together the turntable bridge. It's a bit of a challenge to cut the angled pieces from the Atlas bridge kit so that they will fit properly. Thank goodness for plastic putty to fill in any bad cuts. You can see that I've given the turntable a base coat of gray paint. I have used pieces from the Atlas bridge kit to make an arch. I haven't painted the arch or glued it in place yet. I have to do some other things first. Here's what the arch looks like on the prototype. It supports electrical wires that power the turntable. The paint that I have been waiting on has just arrived in the mail, so now I can paint the turntable bridge black to match the prototype. As you can see on the prototype, a deck of wooden planking was installed so that you can stand there safely when riding on the turntable. And that's what I'm doing now. I have cut strips of styrene to make the wooden planking. I have painted the planks gray and buff to match the wood on the prototype. And now I am drawing lines on the strips to make it look like individual wooden planks. Here you can see that I have installed the planking on the deck of the turntable bridge. And now I have installed the protective fencing along both sides of the bridge so that you don't fall into the pit when you're riding on the turntable. As I showed you earlier at the workbench, this is what I'm using for fencing. I painted it black before gluing it in place. I have now permanently installed the arch. And I have installed the control booth from which the turntable is operated. I have even planted some vegetation in the pit because the prototype has vegetation growing in it. Next up, the Fairmont speeder. We'll get back to the speeder in just a moment. First, I want to show you that I have planted more vegetation in the turntable pit. I have used a variety of tufts. I like these tufts. They're perfect for modeling an arid or semi-arid region, as I'm doing. You can see that I have temporarily placed some pieces of track around the turntable. This track will mostly be covered by dirt and debris, just like it is on the prototype. Now then, I assembled the speeder and painted it. You can see how small it is here with an N-scale person and a dime. The cab came as a single piece, so I couldn't remove the doors as I would have preferred to do. Painting it white and yellow to match the prototype was a bit of a challenge because it's so small. And here it is on the turntable. You know what? I'd love to go for a ride on one of these. I might put a bunch of N-scale people standing here waiting to go for a ride on the turntable and speeder. Maybe they would be here to attend one of those model train shows that are held here at the railroad complex from time to time. Maybe they would even be here for one of those big get-togethers of model railroaders that Sparky 107 organizes. What do you think, Sparky? Well, there you have it. That's how I kitbashed a turntable for my layout. It took a bit of time to do, but it wasn't hard to do. In fact, if I can do it, you certainly can do it. I want to remind you that there are tons of other videos to watch right here on this channel. You can go to my videos page and browse around. I will put a link to it down below. Or you can just go over here and click on these two videos. Thanks for joining me today. I'm Roy Smith. Until next time, happy railroading.